Hi, everyone. I'm Charles Goldberg, and I'm a member of the Prisma Cloud product team. And I want to welcome you to a conversation with one of Prisma Cloud's customers. This is a very special customer because it's an internal customer. And as the world's largest pure play security company, we take our internal security very seriously. Yousuf, can you introduce yourself and discuss Palo Alto Networks' philosophy and approach to securing our own infrastructure?
Absolutely. Thanks, Charles. So I'm Yusuf, and I run the first customer program at Palo Alto Networks. We are part of the CIO organization, and our primary responsibility is to use our own products to secure the company. We work with IT, broader IT organization, with InfoSec, and with the product teams to drink our own champagne. We're driven by our security requirements in adopting our products and engage closely with our product teams to share feedback on issues, scale challenges, feature requests, and especially usability and operationalization requirements. Since cybersecurity is complex, we also share best practices with our customers so they have a predictable journey with cybersecurity. Obviously, they are following or somewhere in the same shoes as we are. The stakes for Palo Alto are really high. And the reason for that is we are a publicly traded company and we are a cybersecurity leader in the market. Therefore, we need to have a really high bar on cybersecurity and how we can secure ourselves. We continuously live and breathe zero trust for applications, for users, and infrastructure, and to protect our crown jewels.
So I want to take a moment to mention that if anyone wants to learn from Hassan and his team, they actually publish their results at techinsiderpaloaltonetworks.com. It's a fantastic resource of best practices. So I'm wondering, have your cloud security concerns evolved going into the COVID pandemic? And again, now that we're coming out of the pandemic?
So we have about 35 sites worldwide, but the pandemic made us go from these 35 office locations to about 12,000 locations, which are every employee's houses. The reason for that is people are now working at home. They are dealing with company intellectual property, and they don't know what's in their houses. Fortunately, ahead of the pandemic, we also started our journey to be a cloud-first organization. As of today, 80% of our data center workloads are in the cloud. IT is in a situation where the users, the applications, and the data are extremely distributed, and it's going to be like this moving forward. It's not going to go back. COVID accelerated the move to cloud, and supporting a hybrid workforce has become the norm. So I don't see us going back from here.
Okay, so that makes sense. So can you give us a feel of what the Palo Alto IT environment looks like?
Yeah. As I mentioned, 80% of our data center workloads are in the cloud. We moved applications using different strategies. Typically, the lift and shift applications go first. Then you have applications which need to be refactored for the cloud, so it depends on the requirements. So some of our lift and shift applications are already in the cloud. Some of the ones that we had to refactor have already been refactored or are in the process, again, depending on the business needs and the criticality and the tech depth of these applications. We moved to the cloud primarily, as you know, to take advantage of the cloud attributes. Number one, to increase deployment velocity, to get better performance and reliability of our applications. Now, most of our new applications are cloud-native applications. Just to also give you some other flavor around our apps, 70% of our apps are SaaS-based applications. Apps like Slack, G Suite, Zoom, etc. And it's pretty common across all customers as well. We've also moved some of our critical applications to the cloud, like SAP HANA. And then we are also supporting some of our business-critical internal apps. Applications like firewall content updates, which share firewall updates with all our customers worldwide, as an example, or customer support portals. So both these applications and others are also running in the cloud.
And I know most large enterprises like Palo Alto are multi-cloud. So I'm kind of curious, which are the cloud service providers that we're using?
So we primarily run on GCP, but also depending on the use cases, we use Azure as well as AWS.
Now that we have most of our applications in the cloud, what are the core security technologies used to protect them?
Fantastic question. So we use next generation firewalls, both physical and virtual, as well as Prisma Access for zero trust. So that is a foundation. Then for endpoint security, we use Cortex XDR. For attack surface management, we use Expanse. And obviously, there are other tools as well, like XSOAR and XCM. For cloud security, we use Prisma Cloud to protect not only our code repositories, but also our pipelines and runtime applications. We use cloud-delivered security services such as DNS security, advanced threat prevention, advanced URL filtering, wildfire, like most customers would do. Additionally, we also use cloud-delivered services like IoT security for protecting IoTs, and then DLP and SaaS API security for data loss prevention inline as well as for our SaaS applications. Now in the cloud, we use VM series firewalls predominantly for all of our inter and intra VPC traffic. So this way we have full visibility of the traffic, and we can also apply security controls.
So is the security approach different for applications that are used for the cloud versus the on-premise?
First of all, we take a consistent approach around using zero trust for applications, period. Our policies are very consistent. We rely heavily on app ID, user ID, and identity management. And this is more from a firewall perspective and Prisma Access policies. Where the approach changes depends on the applications as well, right? So for SaaS applications, the IT organization is only responsible for the data. Therefore, security focuses on SaaS security posture management, or SSPM. For cloud native applications, IT is responsible for both the data and the application. In this case, use cases like cloud security posture management, vulnerability management, and code security require a lot of focus. But in our on-prem data centers, we are spending more time on capacity planning, even for security products. And when physical devices are used, the deployment takes a lot more time. There are constant considerations on server capacity planning as well. Now, in the cloud, it's simple. If you need a bigger capacity, you can jump from a smaller compute to a large one, both for VM and container environments.
All right, so can you share the scale of a cloud environment?
I'll break it into two large buckets, right? So first, company-wide. Company-wide, we have about 100,000 plus containers, and this number is growing, right? We have about more than 50 million lines of code, again, a growing number, more than 50,000 compute instances, and about 3,000 developers. And since we are a fast-growing company, these numbers are only going up. Now, when you look at the IT department, we currently have about 1,000 plus cloud projects, again, growing, about 100 plus applications. I'd say about 60% of them are VM-based, 40% of them are container-based, which are being used by our customers as well, as I mentioned earlier. These apps get about close to 300 million plus transactions on a daily basis. Within our IT department, we also have developers. So from a people's perspective, this is important to mention. So we have about 200 developers, and we have about 30 DevSecOps engineers, including some cloud operations team who are also looking at some of these use cases on an ongoing basis. One thing I also like to mention is that from our journey, 4 years ago, we started moving to a cloud-native application stack. So now we have multiple CI/CD pipelines. We use various forms of automation like Terraform, Ansible, and other tools. And we have 3 nines of app availability for our overall applications.
Okay, so you have all these developers and development teams that you're supporting here at Palo Alto. So how often are they putting code into production?
Yeah, so it depends on the applications. It's a very fast velocity environment. Sometimes these changes and new code is going in on a daily basis. Sometimes it's going on a weekly basis. What I would say is a good way to look at it is on average, we have more than 50 commits every day.
So then how is the security responsibility divided between the dev and security teams?
Sure. InfoSec provides the overall guidelines, for security, and they have a framework. So that is where we partner with InfoSec. So for example, InfoSec would maintain our secure base images for both VM and container images. Now, where IT and InfoSec partner jointly in an operationalized security is, let's say, for our software supply chain. So for example, in this case, the IT DevSecOps team partners with our IT application developers on use cases such as east-west microsegmentation. In this case, basically, we have a framework so that the developers can quickly provide policies. The other example is in fixing application risks and CVEs in third-party packages like Java, like Node.js dependencies, because while we're getting the base images from InfoSec, these application developers know their applications really well around what Java dependencies we have and how to fix them. The other thing also is that we started co-signing our container images and are enforcing the admission control capabilities of our products, and this is automated into our IT pipeline. Our developers are also required to follow InfoSec guidelines. So our IT team makes sure that it's really easy for our developers to follow these guidelines by building automation for security.
Hey, interesting. So that's a lot, right? It's probably pretty typical for most organizations. So how does IT and your organization make it easy for developers to follow InfoSec's guidelines?
The good news is that early on we built automation tools for developers to make security really easy for them. So I'll give you a couple of examples. Number one, we integrated Prisma Cloud runtime protection tools into the developer's IDE environment so they can address image vulnerabilities at the CI stage. And we can even block these builds. We've built dashboards to show our app developers which repos have critical and high severity CVE vulnerabilities. We've also integrated Prisma Cloud into our build pipeline to easily enforce the east-west microsegmentation policies, and this applies especially to the container-based services. The ease here is that we don't want our developers to actually have a PhD in writing policies. We've made the tools to actually make it really simple for them. So by making the policy violation communications, by giving them this visibility, and by enforcing frictionless tools with our developers, it really allows IT, DevSecOps team, and the app developers to work in a really seamless fashion.
Okay, now that makes sense. So let me change gears a little bit. So your team, taste the champagne, and Palo Alto, but do you only evaluate Palo Alto products?
Actually not. IT has, in addition to Palo Alto, a lot of other products. So we start with requirements for a specific use case and also for security use cases. We first evaluate if there is a solution within our Palo Alto Networks product portfolio. If there is, we'll start with that. If not, obviously, we'll do the market research and evaluate other vendors.
So what is that evaluation process?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, we start first with the requirements. We divide the requirements into must-have categories and nice-to-have categories. We also consider usability, deployability, scale, and how easy is it to operationalize these products. By operationalization, for example, we determine how difficult it will be to integrate into our current operational environment. And I think that is really an important aspect, because if done well, you see the fruits, and if not, you struggle through it. Other things we also consider are capabilities like granular role-based access control, which is typical in a large enterprise, APIs and automation hooks, and also out-of-the-box integrations for integrating these products with our existing tools. For Palo Alto products, we regularly give feedback to product management teams on feature capabilities, outstanding issues, scale that we need in order to deploy it in production. We have a pretty strong relationship with product teams. I'll add that we give the same feedback to third-party vendors that we are evaluating. We also don't cut our own internal teams at Palo Alto Networks any slack. We put all products through a consistent, rigorous criteria and evaluation process.
Right, so what are some of the attributes that you like about Prisma Cloud that you found during the evaluation and deployment and production?
We started our deployment journey with Prisma Cloud, starting with cloud security posture management. And the idea was to really quickly have some outcomes. And in a matter of, I'd say, 30 minutes, we were able to connect all of IT's cloud projects with Prisma Cloud. So this gave us some really quick visibility and control over our compliance. We also liked the recommendations on how to address the discovered risks and policy violations in our environment. A lot of them were tied to excessive permissions, which is fairly common. So because of that, we also added the SIM module, or the Cloud Infrastructure Entitlement Management, to our journey to monitor for excessive permissions across our cloud providers. We've also built a cloud operations team in IT to address ongoing security posture issues on a regular basis. So that kind of gives us the ability to not only tackle the problems but continuously monitor and take care of them. Then we moved to cloud workload protection and found the layered approach and the methodical capabilities of protecting workloads extremely useful. We also recently started using software composition analysis to catch vulnerabilities in our repos as well. So earlier on, we were doing it in our CI/CD pipelines, and that kind of gave us complete control of catching vulnerabilities. So next time, if we see Log4j, we'd be able to detect it fairly quickly and take actions.
So it sounds like you've adopted a lot of Prisma Cloud in the pattern that most of our customers adopt it. You started with visibility, then you added protection capabilities, and you shifted left with prevention capabilities. So can you share some of the business outcomes that you've seen since the implementation?
Absolutely, a great question. So with Prisma Cloud, we were able to use it, first of all, uh, with developers without the developers feeling that we are slowing them down. So the frictionless approach was really great. The two main outcomes actually that I can quantify is number one, for east-west container microsegmentation, we turned developers into security champions by building an automation to recommend policies and detect policy drifts so that the developers don't have to have a PhD in writing policies, as I mentioned earlier. Uh, because of that, we've seen a 27-fold in time savings in terms of deploying east-west policies. So what I mean by that is we can now deploy these policies in about 30 to 45 minutes versus manually that would have taken us days or weeks. So once we deployed it over the next 2 quarters, this new process has given us a lot of good dividends. The team is using it. We are able to approve about 100 plus pull requests for our policies. We've also saved tremendous time because of this automation. So that is the first outcome. The second outcome is around our workload protection in the cloud. Because our SRE teams are working with developers to assure they have clean images and they don't have any high or critical severity vulnerabilities. So starting with this process, we saved about $2 million. About 50% of that comes from the productivity benefits because now our developers are spending about 4 minutes to fix these vulnerabilities, which earlier would have taken them about 72 minutes. Exactly. So it's quite a lot of savings, and it's because of that shift-left mindset with the workload protection. Additionally, in addition to these savings, we've also seen our velocity of application development go up. So we've seen about, I'd say, 50 or more applications where we've delivered these apps about 25% faster versus previously, and with zero trust. And then also, we've also increased our compliance. So for example, we measure our compliance based on NIST, CMMC, and CIS. And in all these areas, our compliance has gone up by over 75%. So that's the value of shifting left with the workload protection overall.
Yeah, that's some fantastic results.
Yeah.
So we like to continuously evaluate ourselves as well. So what are some of the things that you think Prisma Cloud can do better?
So a great question. So we have air gap repos, and it's been a problem to provide SCA coverage on these repos. We want to continuously shift left And as part of this, we wanted to look at vulnerabilities and security posture in our private repos. We are now evaluating a new feature of Prisma Cloud. It's called Transporter, which allows us to have SCA done in air-gap repositories. So it's really a good solution for us. We've also developed in-house solutions to secure our CI/CD pipeline tools. We are looking forward to evaluating the capabilities that are coming to Prisma Cloud through the Cider acquisition as well. So I'm really excited about that. And that will allow us to secure our software supply chain. Anytime we can reduce in-house deployment and expand the commercial off-the-shelf products that are already integrated into our environment, we take it. That's really useful for us. So this way, our resources can be redeployed to other innovative opportunities and projects.
So before we go, are there any other best practices you can leave our viewers with?
Sure. So for us, operationalization is critical for to grow at the scale and move fast within Palo Alto Networks. This means that we need security tools that integrate easily. They provide comprehensive visibility and provide outcomes. This is why we prefer platform. A platform approach allows us to go for proven integration between capabilities, complementary capabilities, and easily allow us to expand into new use cases.
So Yousuf, thank you very much for joining us today, taking time from your busy schedule to share a lot about Palo Alto IT, your experiences and best practices. And thank you for joining us today. I hope you learned a lot from Yousuf.